I used to dread attending parent-teacher conferences because I was the type of student that didn't get the best grades throughout the year, but I would always clutch up at the end of the year when it actually mattered. But these meetings were always held in the middle of the year, so I knew the teachers wouldn't be saying great things about me to my parents. But before I get into that, the goal for today's video is to continue renovating this basement. So the way these conferences would work is the teachers would let the students choose who they want to meet. So maybe like a week before the meeting, we get this piece of paper and we have to go around to teachers that we want to meet and we have to just schedule an appointment. Because of this, I'd only get appointments from the nice teachers and the teachers that I really liked and the teachers that I knew really liked me as well. If you didn't watch my video where I was talking about my high school experience, well, first of all, what the fuck are you doing? Go watch that shit right now. Nah, I'm joking, but in that I mentioned how there was this French teacher that completely hated me, and it was because I was just absolute dog shit at French. Throughout my whole time in school, I can happily say that it was definitely the worst subject I've ever been part of. There's many reasons to why I sucked at French, and the most important reason is that I just really didn't like it. I was only close to one person in that class, and I just didn't like French at all, and I just didn't care about learning French, so it makes sense. The reason I mentioned that is because I would never get an appointment with the French teacher that I hated. Well, for obvious reasons. I knew she was just gonna diss me in front of my parents, and I just didn't want that. I had this French teacher for like 6-7 years or something, and these meetings happen every single year, so I already knew what was gonna happen. But every single year, what would end up happening is that she would force me to get an appointment. There was this one year where I lied to her and I just told her that my parents aren't coming because they're busy, and she was like, okay, that's fine. I completely lied, and I was just going about the day, walking around to different classes, talking to different teachers with my dad. And out of nowhere, when I was walking through the hallway, I heard my French teacher's voice, and I just knew what was gonna happen. She saw that I was with my dad, and when I looked back, I saw the biggest smile on her face, and I knew I was so screwed. She told my dad and I to come into the class, and she cooked the living shit out of me. And obviously that wasn't the only time. Every single year she would cook me, and it even got to the point where my dad was just used to it. Before going to the class, we would always joke about how she was gonna diss me this year. That could be a problem. The play is definitely slabs, I think. Yeah, I think the andesite diorite combination is actually pretty nice. Luckily for me, it was only French, and my dad didn't really care about French. He's a typical dad. He cared about maths and science and all that. So me being dog water at French was not too deep for me. Ooh, the ceiling could be quartz, That might look really nice. So as I said, I always got an appointment from the nice teachers, and some of these teachers were so nice that they wouldn't even bring up the test results during the meeting. I could have dropped an absolute stinker and they would just tell my dad that I did alright. I gotta give a serious shout out to those teachers, man. They saved me from so many ass whoopings, so thank you guys. But obviously on the other hand, there were teachers that would bring up the test results as the first thing during the meeting. Me and my dad would walk into the class, and those teachers would greet us, say, hello Artun, hello Artun senior. And then as we sat down, they would go, Artun failed that test, by the way. And I'm like, come on now, at least give me a chance. There were also hilarious moments that happened during these parent-teacher conferences. There were times where my parents would be too busy and they just wouldn't come that day. On these days where parents were too busy and they wouldn't come, the kids still had to go around and talk to every single teacher. Oh, you can just put it on the floor. I didn't know that. After a few years of these meetings, we found out there were certain students that would never have their parents come. And it was never for like a serious reason or anything. Like, these guys were my friends and their parents just wouldn't come because they were busy. Those guys were chilling. They genuinely had like no stress at all because they just were walking around by themselves talking to the teachers, and they never even had to tell what the teachers told them to their parents. So every year they had a great time. They were never stressed about it. So as I was saying, I actually just went on a little tangent there. There was this one time where my dad didn't end up showing up, and I still had to meet my math teacher, and I was gonna go in there by myself. But right outside the class, before I was about to go in, I met a friend that was also from that class, and he also didn't have his parents there that day. Oh, what the hell happened here? No. He's one of my closest friends, like, till now. This teacher was like super chill, so my friend asked the teacher if he could just come into my meeting as my dad. Obviously the teacher found it funny, but he said, you know what, sure, why not? So we went into the meeting, and the teacher started talking about how I was doing that term. The teacher was pretty much saying that I didn't work as hard as I could have that term, and just things like along those lines. When my friend heard that, in the middle of the meeting, he started making fun of me, and the teacher looked at my friend and said, don't even get me started on you. And then he started talking about how my friend performed in that term, and it was just super funny because he's dissing him as well and dissing me at the same time. And that's definitely like one of my favorite memories from those days. Also, another thing I remember my French teacher did, this was also on the same day where my dad didn't end up showing up. This time it wasn't a lie and she knew it, so she just told me to come into the class and she would just talk to me about how I did that term. She was obviously dissing me again, but this time I didn't care because my dad wasn't there, so I was just like, whatever, I didn't think much of it. I wasn't even really listening to her, but then at the very end she said, I've written your dad an email of exactly what I've said today, by the way. And I was just like, oh, come on, bro. She didn't even trust me enough that I would go back and tell my dad what she said, which is definitely valid because I 100% would have not told my dad what she said. But again, luckily my dad just doesn't really care about French, so I was completely fine. These days would always begin with an assembly, and at this time, my parents would never show up early because there was just no point of these assemblies. It was the exact same thing every single year. A lot of parents started catching up on that, so they would always just show up at the times of the appointment and not for the assembly. Me and the boys always wanted to skip this assembly, but then the teachers would somehow find us and always tell us to go in. So we would always end up going in late, and we would sit at the very back. This would happen every single year, but it was so funny every single time because it was just me and the boys having fun at the back of an assembly, We'd always just be looking around, looking at our friends with their parents, and it was just like a funny thing. It was just super funny to see the difference in the way people acted when they were with their parents compared to when they were with their friends. For me personally, the funniest thing that would happen every single year is when I would be walking through the hallway with my parents and I would see a friend with their parents. We would be so polite because we obviously don't want to be disrespectful around parents. Ooh, what's that? Oh, that's That's actually kind of huge, I think. That's good for the boots and shit. I'll take it. That's also just like really important in Thailand because like it's all about respecting your elders. It would just be super funny because like 20 minutes before our parents arrived, we would be dissing each other and we'd be at our necks, you know, swearing at each other, roasting each other. But as our parents arrived, we just turned into civilized human beings. We would start speaking with better vocabulary. We would calm our tones down. We would just be super respectful. It would just be so funny to see. You could always see in those interactions that me and my friend were always trying not to laugh. At first, I also just thought that was like a my school thing and me and my friends type of thing. But then I've seen so many TikToks online going over the same topic, and it's just kind of funny that's like a global thing. Luckily for me, it was my dad that would always come, and he's just super chill about these things, and I'd always be stressed beforehand just because I don't know what the teacher's gonna say, but afterwards it always ended up pretty well, and you know, it was actually quite fun. When it came to the later years where the grades actually mattered, then obviously it was a bit more serious and my dad took it more seriously, but most of the time in the later years I had chill teachers and all those teachers liked me, so it actually was still fine. Let me know down in the comments if you relate at all to this video, and if you ended up enjoying this video, please do leave a like and subscribe, and if you're still watching till now, you're definitely enjoying it, so you might as well click on the video that just popped up. Or don't, it's obviously up to you. Thank you guys for watching and have a great night. Peace.